Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Game, Develop, Repeat. I'm your host, Chris, and today I want to chat with you about overthinking, how it relates to playing and enjoying video games, and how we can connect it to game development. It's a thing that I do a lot, so I have a lot of thoughts about it. So, without further ado, let's get started. How often do you overthink your way out of enjoying a game? This may seem like an odd way to frame it, but I think we've all had this experience. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. I suspect that you have, where you're playing a game and you think about it so much or so deeply. You dive into it enough that it loses the fun element and turns into a sort of a project, but not the kind of project that's deeply satisfying, the kind of project where you just get frustrated and then you just get more frustrated and you're like, it's not working with me and this, that, the other. Whether or not this is a problem, I guess, depends on the genre, because as I'm saying this, I'm also finding myself thinking, well, sometimes you want that frustration because then there's a huge payoff at the end because you do eventually figure it out and then it's a massive payoff, right? In a puzzle game, in a particularly difficult RPG, it can be really nice to plan out what you're going to do and then to have that plan go well. But there are many times where we overplan, we over optimize, we think about it so much that we make our character the most overpowered thing that's ever existed, and then it's not fun. I personally don't get that much out of that. I don't really love playing Morrowind with a perfect build. I don't think many people do. If you know exactly what you want to do in Morrowind or Skyrim, and you really optimize your build and you make it just so incredibly powerful, you just go all in on I am the most powerful thing ever. I've optimized my build. There's nothing that can take me down sort of situation. Well, then congratulations, you're powerful. But now where's the gameplay loop? I guess it's in the exploration, but by the time you know how to build a build like that, you've probably already explored, and oops, now you're not having fun. You've over optimized things. You've overthought your way into having less of a fun time. Now, maybe the theory crafting is the point for you, in which case, do the theory crafting, and then if you've had your fun, you don't have to play the character. Now, if that's satisfying for you, then play the character. Fair enough. But pay attention to whether or not you're enjoying yourself. Maybe you should take that overthinking and apply it somewhere else, if it even is overthinking. There are genres in which thinking deeply and almost incessantly, really digging into the mechanics, really thinking about what the strategy is going to be, thinking tactically, thinking about positions. This stuff can make the game infinitely more fun. Final Fantasy Tactics, Front Mission 3. These were some of my favorite games as a child, which I don't really get into now because I don't have the energy for it, I guess. It's not that I don't like that kind of combat. It's that I often go, I don't want to think about this right now. I've got other things to focus on, or I want to play something a bit more, maybe not brainless, but a bit less thought focused. Having said that, I will play something like Age of Wonders, whichever the most recent one was. Age of Wonders Planetfall, Age of Wonders 4. I do like those. But these are games where overthinking is rewarded and, in fact, necessary. I think the more challenging something is mentally, the more fun it's going to be for the player that really wants to dive deep. And then you've maybe got other angles on thinking too much about the game. Arguably not too much. It just depends on your level of enjoyment. For some people, thinking about the lore ruins the illusion. For other people, thinking about the lore fleshes out the world. Sometimes the deeper you dive into the lore of a game, the more you love the game. Other times you go, wait, but this doesn't make sense. The rules of this world are inconsistent. And I don't think that's just about the way the game is written. I think it's about the personality of the person who is looking into it. Maybe you focus a lot on the underlying rules of like the magic. Maybe you focus a lot on the relationships between characters and political organizations and governments and things like that. Depending on what your priority is, a deep dive into what you find enjoyable about the game may pay off or may create problems for you. Personally, I like a game that has extremely polished gameplay mechanics that make it so that I can't think about what is getting in the way of me playing the game. I want the game to feel smooth. I want the game to feel intuitive, and I want to never start thinking about how this could be smoother. I don't want to think about that. And I'm not talking smoother in terms of like difficulty curve and all of this stuff. I don't want to go, oh man, I really wish the jump was just a little bit faster. Oh, it would be so much better if I had a little more control right when I land. Oh man, I can't stand the way that this functions or that functions. I think that's a pretty fundamental one. But then maybe this is just because I've been playing a lot more platformers and action-based games lately. I don't know. I've never been one to dive into the lore all that deeply. I kind of want the game to have a aesthetic that I enjoy, the implication of a deep world tucked away. And I don't like when there are answers to all of my questions. I want to think about something and have a million possibilities laid out in front of me. I don't want to be able to just Google every answer to the lore in a game. And now that feels like a perfect time to pivot to talking about making games and overthinking in life in general. I've always liked objective truth. I've always liked clear, satisfying answers and clean, clear-cut, comfortable, stable facts. I like, even in music, a strong resolution at the end of something. I like to feel like all my questions have been answered and I know exactly what is going to happen. Or at least I used to. I've gotten a lot looser with that. And this may be a surprise to those of you who've watched the Twitch stream. The idea that I like objective, factual stuff. The idea that I want things to be solid and clear and incredibly black and white, clean cut, no problem, right? Boom, done. That's the answer. Let's move forward. 2 plus 2 is 4. 5 plus 3 is 8. So on and so on. I like that. And at the same time, in pursuing those sorts of truths, I have ended up overthinking things that are simply not that way. And this is, in my opinion, an extremely important element of creating stuff. There is not an objective right way to make the thing that you want to make. There is not. It's not there. It does not exist. There is no version of your project that is objectively the only right way to make this project. If you want to make a platformer, there are 100 different ways, thousands of different ways to make an excellent, incredible version of whatever your vague concept is. You can make so many different things out of your idea. Even as your idea gets more and more specific, you have to refine it. You have to find what you want to make, not what the objective, truth, factual, whatever answer is. There is no perfect engine for you until you know what you make, blah, blah, blah. Don't get caught up on objective truth when you're creating things. You are going to enjoy the project. You're going to pick something that you love working on and you're going to work towards figuring it out. And you don't need to go online and search, how do I make a good platformer? You don't need to go online and search, how do I specifically make a good platformer? Let me put it that way. Because you can go online and go, what are the elements of platformers that have been successful in the past? You can look at this and you can go, oh, there are patterns. There are things that I need to do if I want to move in the direction of making this particular game. There are inspirations you can draw from. There are all of these things you can learn about. But you have creativity in this context. You are the one creating the thing. Don't go searching for exact answers, including in your own head, by the way. I think part of the overthinking is going, I just can't find the right way to do this. You're not supposed to find the right way to do this. You're supposed to find your way to do this. Maybe that's a strong statement, but I'm a big believer in you are presenting your perspective. You are creating your version of this game, your piece of music, your piece of art, whatever it is. And maybe you will hate it because you haven't actually done what you wanted to do, and then you're going to learn how to make it better. Maybe other people will hate it and you will love it. Okay, it's not marketable. Or they're seeing some element of it that you're blind to because you've been working on it for too long, and you should ask them what it is they don't like about it so that you can learn from what they don't like and go, ooh, you know what? Now that I'm seeing it from somebody else's eyes, maybe it's not a giraffe. Maybe it does look like a dog. I'm not a very good artist. I need to improve on this because my communication skills are failing me. When we create art, we are communicating something. Is there an objectively right way to say hello to somebody? No. Is there a more or less right way to say hello to someone in a certain context? Sure. In a gym, maybe you just fist bumped some guy because you know him. You've known him for a long time. Maybe you do the head nod because it's somebody who you don't really know, but you keep seeing them around. Maybe you wave. Maybe there's some specific context to your relationship that makes it the standard greeting, but even then you can mix it up. Hit them with the howdy, right? Throw things off a little bit. Even in the smallest of little interactions that we have with each other, there's no objectively right way to communicate. And art is ultimately communication. And I think that this gets missed, and I think that this gets confusing. We get into this thing where we go, I just want to make a game. I want to make something that's fun. I just want to make this thing and that thing and this mechanic and whatever. But the thing that you're doing is communicating with other people. Even if you're focused on things in a very, very pure game development, mechanical sense, you're still communicating something. You're letting them know something about competition. You're teaching them, like chess. Chess still communicates a message to the player. It has no story, not really. It has no deep lore. Well, it has historical lore, right? But the game itself isn't like this is the lore behind this particular pawn. This pawn's parents said this to him when he was 3 years old. Like, it's not like that. But there's still an underlying message to chess. There's still an underlying implication that, like, there is thought and strategy and all of this stuff to the moves that you make in life. There is a deep felt message in whatever game you are making. There is something that you are trying to get across to the player, one way or another. And I'm not saying go do this annoying, preachy thing that sometimes people will do, where you make a song that is telling you exactly what the message of the song is, where you make a game that is slapping you across the face with the game's message every 2 seconds. Now, that can be enjoyable, too. There are games that I've played that I think other people would hate because they would be too preachy for them or too direct or too artless or whatever, but I enjoy them because I hate to tell you this, but everybody's coming from a different place. Everybody has a different perspective, and you know this. My audience knows this. Everybody has a different perspective. Everybody who plays the game is going to get something different from it. And for one person, a really preachy game is going to be amazing because it hits in a certain way. It goes, oh, these are things that I need explained to me in this extremely straightforward, almost slapping me across the face with it way. Because I want to relate to this. I want to have this worldview shown to me because I want things to be this simple. I want things to be this straightforward, and I want to feel this way, or this helps me understand someone's perspective that I've never understood before. Some other person will look at it and go, oh, can we please stop talking about the most obvious life lessons in the world? Oh, another indie game about depression. Okay, great, thanks. Right? Like maybe it's been played out for you, or maybe you play it and you go, oh my God, I can relate to this so deeply. What am I trying to get at here? When you're developing the game, don't, it's important to think about the person playing it. And I'm not saying this from a marketing perspective. Screw that. I don't care about that. Not really. I mean, I want people to enjoy, I want there to be a market for it, but I'm not trying to do this thing where I make the broadest possible audience for my projects, That seems bland. I want to communicate effectively to whoever the game is for. And when you're making your game, it's important to think about that not because of sales numbers, not because of, oh, I want to make sure that it sells this many copies. I want to make sure that it's this successful. I want to make sure that people like me and love the things that I'm making and tell me that I'm such a good developer and I'm so interesting and, oh my God, I'm kind of cute too. Like, oh man, people are going to like me so much because I made this cool game. No, the point is that you make something that people can relate to. And the reason to pay attention to your audience is so that you can craft the message in a way that they understand or relate to or feel or get some value out of. I suspect that sometimes we are profoundly self-indulgent as creative people. I don't suspect it. I think that it's a common problem. I say suspect. I feel that it is a fact, and maybe that's just because I have acted that way. I think broadly speaking, a lot of creative people are profoundly self-indulgent, just extremely like, I'm exploring my own feelings and I'm putting them into this thing, and I'm exploring my own feelings and I'm putting them into this thing, which is an important part of communication, but the part that gets missed is the communication part. Your game can be a diary entry. Your novel can be a diary entry. Whatever you are creating can be something you're just making for you to get some stuff out and figure it out. But if you are trying to sell it to the world, if you are trying to pitch it to other people as something that is valuable, as something that they should connect with, that they should relate to, that they should buy, you need to be saying something to them in a way that they can understand, in some kind of a structured way that's easy to digest and entertaining and human. This is why certain pieces of art have just punched me in the gut lately. I watched Arcane. I finished Arcane season 2, and there are so many moments in that show that are just such masterpieces of communicating emotion. I've been watching Breaking Bad. I'm almost done. I'm like 4, 5, 6 episodes away. It feels like it never ends right now because my schedule's so tight. But I've been watching Breaking Bad, and it is phenomenal how it communicates these characters' growth and the story arc and oh my God, the way it all is getting tied together, coming up on the end. It's a masterpiece of showing you what it would be like to be in a particular arc of your life, or even to just experience some of the emotions evolved in this whole arc of life. And that is what hits so hard about it. I think oftentimes the arts in general get undervalued, right? We get this perspective of, nobody wants to pay for art. Nobody wants to pay for art. You can't just be an artist. You can't just get away with this, that, the other. And game devs are so oversaturated and all of this stuff. Part of that is the creation of pieces of art that are purely meant to be diary entries. And then going, I put so much work into this. Why isn't anybody buying it? Why am I not making any money in it? Well, because you just made whatever was on your mind without effectively connecting to other people, without practicing saying this stuff to somebody else and going, how does that come across to you? What do you feel when you see this? What do you feel when you play this? How do you understand the story that I'm trying to tell you? You've never given a speech before in your life, and then you've worked for 4 years on just vomiting out your emotion onto a page, which is great, by the way, without then refining it into something that somebody else can understand and digest. And there's that element of this. There's that element of art getting undervalued. I think we don't understand the purpose sometimes. I'm sorry, I'm speaking so broadly. We sometimes don't understand the purpose of our own creations when they go out into the world, and that can be fine. However, I do think personally that knowing that the purpose of my art is to connect with people, knowing that the purpose of my creativity is to communicate with others, to show them something, and to help them understand that perspective is so, so important in making a good game. And if we want to show people the value of creativity, of artistic expression, then we need to actually use it to communicate with them, to communicate things that we can't just communicate through conversation. If somebody asks me, what is my game about? I want to be like, that's going to be a little bit difficult to explain in words. You're going to have to play it. But broadly speaking, this, you know? If somebody's like, what is this movie about? We always go, you gotta see it, man. Like if it's a really good film, you go, you've just gotta see it. It's about this and that and the other. And then it's never going to be an effective sales pitch. You can tell somebody that so many times. And then 3 years later, they finally watch it. How many times have you had this experience? 3 years later, they finally watch the thing and they go, oh my God, this is so good. And you're like, finally, dude. I've been telling you. I've been trying to get you to watch it. And they're like, yeah, well, you didn't explain it the way that made me want to watch it. And they're like, I told you why it was so good. And they're like, yeah, but it's different when you watch it. So what we end up doing is we end up just saying to people, dude, I'm telling you, you've got to play this game. You've got to watch this movie. You've got to listen to this album. Because the only way to experience it is to experience it. Right? Speaking of overthinking, there goes me overthinking all of this. Let's wrap this thing up, huh? Here's my only question for you this week. What do you enjoy overthinking? And what do you not enjoy overthinking? Now, I want to make an additional comment on this. I'm not asking what you overthink frequently. I'm not asking what you are compelled to think about a ton. I'm asking what you enjoy overthinking and what you don't enjoy overthinking. You may do it all the time. That doesn't mean you enjoy it. You may want to do it. You may feel compelled to do it. That does not mean that you are enjoying it. If you want a bonus question, I don't know. Maybe I don't have one for you. I was going to say, what is it that you want to communicate to the world? But I think thinking about that is overthinking. I think the only way to figure it out is to start trying to do it. Start putting it into words, by which I mean start creating the game. Start creating the art. Start creating the music. Whatever it is that you're going to create. Now, normally I answer my own questions. So what is it that I enjoy overthinking? You have listened to me do it for 103 episodes. I enjoy overthinking this stuff. Video games, I enjoy thinking about games and how they relate to life. I love thinking about it too much. It's fun for me. Art in general, design, I love overthinking it. Now, I'm often compelled to overthink minuscule social interactions or minor logistical details of my life. But I don't enjoy overthinking that stuff. I just do it a lot. That wraps it up for this week. Small update, not small update, significant update. I am not really streaming right now. I started a new job where I am going to be working roughly 68 hours a week for a few weeks. It's also the holiday season, so you can imagine how my schedule is looking until that should chill out in like early January 2025. So like it's not a super long chunk of time. It's like a few weeks, and then we'll see what the schedule changes to after that. Plans change constantly, but I've started working a construction job with a good long-term outlook. So I won't give you any more details than that, but the Twitch stream is going to be very sporadic for those of you who watch that. So heads up on that. The podcast will remain consistent. It's going to be posted every week because I love doing this and I want to keep this schedule, and I'm going to. Thank you all for joining me this week. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, get out there, make some stuff, and have fun with it. Bye-bye.